good, man?
I'm Ryan Landon, and I was here to bite the bullet for cancer, but I'm going to bite the bullet for fatherhood. I didn't know anything about this project until maybe a week or so ago. Had a friend tell me about it. People come in and talk about some of their struggles and things that are going on that other people might be able to relate to. My 4-year-old son, Maddocks, was recently diagnosed with leukemia. Been a father for almost 12 years, got 3 boys. I guess there's a few times in my life where I felt like I failed my kids. I grew up in a household, mom and dad, and believed that, you know, you should stay together, work stuff out, put your kids to bed every night, do these traditional ideas of what a family looked like. Unfortunately, my kid's mom and I didn't have a very healthy relationship. We haven't been together for a long time now, but we definitely get along better and can put stuff aside when it really matters too. I guess it's been a really weird journey the last month. It's just completely changed my life. You know, maybe a month ago now, I was hanging out at home with the kids. It was on the weekend. I crawled into bed. I was just laying down. I was just watching some hunting videos on TV, and my youngest son, Maddocks, cuddled up right on my shoulder and just breathing in my face. And I remember going to bed, and I remember getting a crappy sleep. I remember getting kicked all night. I remember waking up with his little face an inch from mine, just breathing right in my face. And I just remember just being like, just totally okay with it. And it was a really odd time because it never crossed my mind once of what was actually going on. You know, you think as a father, you just know everything that's going on with your kids. If they're healthy, if they're not healthy, if they're happy, if they're not happy. You think that you know everything. And Maddocks had a little bit of a fever on and off. He's a 4-year-old kid. He runs around. He wrestles with his brothers. He's reckless. He does all these things. And I guess I just thought he was just being a sweaty little kid. Like, that's what they did. He got sweaty. He'd want to have a nap, but you'd get him to lay down, and he'd doze off and have a sleep, and he'd get up. And after half an hour of laying down, he wouldn't be sweating anymore. He'd be fine. I remember his mom had brought it up to me a couple times. She said, like, hey, like, does he seem like he has a fever going on? Is there something off with him? And I was like, well, I don't think so. Like, I think he's just running around being sweaty. There's some flus going around. It's kind of crappy season for us. Stuff's lingering. I said, maybe he's getting sick, and then he kind of fights it off, and then he kind of gets it again a little bit. And to me, it wasn't a concern at all. The next weekend, I went out hunting with a buddy for the day, and I got back, and I was sitting down, I was making some supper, and there was a message on my phone, and it said something about that from his mom, saying that she thought that he had maybe picked up a parasite somewhere or something like that, and it was causing a fever, and she had sent me some instructions for some medication to take to deal with some sort of parasite. So it's like, okay, not a big deal. Kids do gross stuff, get into gross things. It's possible. I checked my phone maybe an hour later, and I realized that I had missed a call from her. I had also missed a call from her boyfriend. And so I was a little bit like confused. It'd be odd. It's just completely out of sorts for both of them to send me, to message me or to call me like that unless there's something wrong. So I called her boyfriend back, and he informed me at that time that they were at the hospital. They did a blood test, and they found out they had some blast cells in his blood and was diagnosed with leukemia. I remember just being like complete disbelief, like it's just not anything that I had ever expected. It's not something I ever thought about. I felt like maybe I'd been just naive the whole time. Like how could something like this not cross my mind? I mean, I guess when I think about cancer and I think about these things, I associate them with people that live like extremely unhealthy lifestyles. I associate them with older people. It was never something that I associated with kids. I mean, not 4-year-old kids. And if I had, it was like, that's the unfortunate thing that happens to someone else's kids. It never crossed my mind that it's something that could happen to my own kids. I felt like I'd failed my kids. I felt like it's like my job to protect my kids from everything. It's my job to make sure that they're happy, to make sure they're taken care of. And you know, you question everything. You question, is this something that I did? So that night he got transported to Edmonton Hospital. I can honestly say it was the worst sleep I've ever had. I've never in my life went to bed and had just like an absolutely overwhelming amount of fear I might wake up in the morning and have one less child. It's completely unimaginable. And then the other side is just still providing for the other two boys as a father. It was my job to be strong for them, I guess, be tough and still be a father and still do those things, but be in this weird place of like feeling absolutely horrible with what's going on, feeling like a failure. It was a really, really scary moment in my life, just not knowing, like what the outcome of this whole situation would be. So it's been a few weeks now, super rough time in the hospital. There's lots of ups and downs. It's just like an absolutely overwhelming experience. It's been absolutely mind-blowing and overwhelming how many people are willing to take time out of their own lives, away from their own families. Just the sacrifice that people are willing to make for someone, and like the sense of community has been, it's just been completely overwhelming. You find yourself in this situation where you're away from work, or you're out of work because you need to be at a hospital, you're trying to juggle all these things, and people are making offers and offering to, you know, make some donations to help you out, and food and rides and all these things, and you kind of find yourself in this crazy predicament where you have to accept help from other people. Just have to admit that, like, I need some help. Like, this is a really tough situation. I don't know, this whole situation just completely changed my life. I went from a place of feeling like, you know, it wasn't even possible that I would be outliving my kids, to a place of complete fear that my son might never make it home from the hospital. He still has a ton of appointments to go to. He's still got chemotherapy for at least another 3 years. You know, it's easy as a parent to be tired and wiped out, and when your kids ask you to do something, you know, you say, next time. I guess for me, I just kind of decided to make it my goal that when my kids ask me to do something, the answer is yes. Go fishing, go hunting, go for a hike, go camping. Just trying to decide that the answer is yes to that, and just make a plan and have that follow through, and just enjoy that time and not take it for granted. I mean, I remember people just saying that, you know, they'd be thankful that everyone's just healthy, but it never really meant much to me until now, that's for sure. But yeah, it's crazy. There's still like a surreal, doesn't feel real every day. It kind of feels like this thing in the back of your mind where you're, I guess, just like waiting for it to be over, but it's not really the case. if you have kids, hug your kids. If you have good friends, like hug your friends. Let people know that you care. Like reach out. Don't take stuff for granted.